There is a big problem in the fitness industry right now. A lot of lifters are turning to science-based lifting sources to find certainty in their training, but more often than not, those science-based programs end up falling short in the real world. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that happens, and you'll leave with a simple framework that combines the best of the science with real-world application, so you have the tools to make consistent, measurable progress. It's the same approach I've refined over 3 decades of training and 2 decades of coaching, shaped by years of context experience and my background as an educator. That is a combination that is rare in this industry. And it's why my clients fast track results in a way you won't find anywhere else. If you're interested in coaching, there's a link in the description of this video. And there's one critical mistake that almost everyone makes when they're trying to follow the science, something you're probably doing right now. And when I fixed it, my own progress skyrocketed. That's coming up in point 4. So stick around. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into it. So picture this. You've got your new research-based program. Every set and rep is laid out. You're tracking your lifts, you're logging your sleep, you're sticking to the plan exactly as prescribed. At first, you're excited. You are an intelligent, competent individual from your own industry coming into this industry looking for the best science-based protocols which you know are going to help you. However, a few months later, the mirror looks the same. Your lifts are barely moving, and that initial excitement has been replaced by frustration. That is a particular issue with the fitness industry because it is so poorly regulated. Most of the largest accounts are extremely poor source of information. They are only large due to excellent advertising rather than excellent advice. They are YouTubers, not coaches. Unlike myself, I'm a coach first and I'm a YouTuber a distant second. Now, I see this all the time. Lifters come to me after years of stagnation, doing all the wrong things, obsessing over details that don't even matter, and missing the fundamentals that do. Some are carrying injuries from poor programming. Others have been stuck for so long, their expectations have collapsed. What started as a goal to get muscular and beach lean has become just staying in shape. They're downtrodden, they're burnt out, and mentally they're beaten down. And here's the paradox. This is supposed to be science-based. It's built on the latest research, so why isn't it working? The first big reason has nothing to do with how hard you're training. It's built into the research itself. Point 1, the average fallacy. Most lifters don't realize that almost every training study you hear about is based on group averages. That average number might sound impressive, but remember, it's just the midpoint. In the same group, you've got outliers who make huge progress and others who barely move at all. I mean, a great example is the classic 90s studies to do with FFMI. Everyone lauds 25 FFMI as being a limit, but little do they know that even within that study, there were people who had 27 FFMI and 28 and 29. Right? There are even influencers on YouTube who say they read the research, who point to 25 being a limit, not knowing that in the research they are citing themselves, there were people with higher FFMIs. I covered that in a video a couple of years ago, and it still baffles my mind that people get it wrong. So when an influencer says to you, science says 10 to 20 sets per muscle group is optimal, what they're really saying is, on average, this worked for the people in the study. It says nothing about how you will respond. I see this play out constantly in my coaching. A guy will come to me having run the latest evidence-based plan, and on paper, it's perfect. But in reality, he's dragging himself through every workout, missing lifts, constantly sore, and wondering why he's not getting the same results as the research promised. Very often, the problem isn't a lack of effort. Not for my guys, not for you guys who are watching YouTube. If you're watching this channel right now, your problem is probably not a lack of effort. You're probably training just hard enough because you're interested enough in the subject to actually search out smaller channels like my own. The real problem is that they're doing too much volume, or they're picking poor exercises that look fancy online but don't actually move the needle. You know the type. They cuff everything, unilateral everything with sloppy form and no real progressive overload, or they're grinding away with technically poor execution that beats them down instead of building them up. I've been there too. I've made the same mistake. Back in 2016, I tried an escalating volume approach. Even for me, with my training background, it was too much. It ended with an injured hamstring and a long road back. The research theories didn't save me there because my own reality was very different from the average. And in the end, of course, that was walked back and people thought that was absolute nonsense. So there we are. Here's the truth. Your genetics, your recovery capacity, your injury history, your lifestyle, stress, and training background all change how you respond. A 25-year-old student sleeping 9 hours a night with no kids can handle a completely different workload than a 40-year-old shift worker juggling kids and a mortgage. When you ignore those individual differences and apply the research average like it's gospel, you're setting yourself up for stagnation or burnout. And that's before we even get into the massive gap between the lab and the gym. So moving on to point 2, context is king. So let's go beyond the lab. Lab studies are done under pristine, tightly controlled conditions. The subjects are often young, healthy, motivated, and monitored closely for nutrition, sleep, and session quality. Everything is designed to isolate the variable being tested. And here's something most people don't consider. Most subjects sign themselves up for these studies because they're in a relatively stress-free period of their lives. They have the time, the energy, and the focus to commit up to 12 to 16 weeks of consistent, high-quality training with no interruption. Ask yourself, when was the last time you had a 4-month window where nothing in life interfered with your training? I mean, I can say it's been a while. Now compare that to your life. Maybe you work long hours, you deal with commute stress, you skip your meals because of back-to-back meetings and phone calls, or you train late at night after looking after your kids. Maybe you're not sleeping 8 hours, you're lucky to get 6. These variables are not excuses. They are simply the reality for 99% of lifters. I learned this lesson the hard way early on. I tried following highly structured powerlifting peaking programs like Corte and Shaco back in the early 2000s. They looked fantastic on paper. They give you that air of certainty. But you know what? I executed them perfectly. And when it came to testing day, nothing happened. I missed my lifts. At the time, I thought something was wrong with me, when in reality, the plan was never designed for my life context. The bigger the gap between your real world context and the lab conditions, the more that so-called optimal program falls apart. You can't just copy and paste lab-based protocols into a chaotic life and expect magic. But even when people do understand this, they still get caught chasing something that derails their progress faster than anything else. Which takes me to my next point, the dogma of optimal and program hopping. In the online fitness space, optimal is a word that gets thrown around constantly. But in research terms, optimal usually means the best average results for this group under these conditions for this usually short length of time. Yet once the results are published, it's presented to the public as if it's a universal key to muscle growth. We all remember Brad's title saying high volume training. Is there still any doubt? What a statement. What a statement. And that's where the shiny object effect kicks in. Lifters think, oh, that's the new optimal, and they drop whatever they're doing to jump on the latest bandwagon. This happened with escalating volumes. This happened with length and partials, stretch mediated hypertrophy, and that is where my objection comes in. It's not necessarily that these things aren't working. A lot of the times they don't, but it's not even that. It's the fact that people are stopping programs which were working to jump onto new things, and that halts their progress. So the problem is every time you reset your program, you also reset your adaptation clock. Your body never gets a chance to fully adapt to the training stress before you switch it again. I've made this mistake myself. Okay, in the past, I would completely ignore the so-called non-optimal strategies and go straight for the recommended 10 to 20 sets per muscle, twice a week frequency. But some of my best progress has come from approaches that researchers say are suboptimal. Pyramid training and even very low volume. I mean, if you look around at the biggest bodybuilders in the UK, most of them train with volumes the research says are way too low, but they train harder than anyone else. I've seen lifters hop from low volume to high volume every 6 weeks, wondering why nothing sticks. The reality is long-term consistency beats theoretical perfection every time. So if chasing optimal doesn't work, well, what does? That's where the real science starts. And here we approach point 4, empowering your own science. The answer is not abandoning science. It's learning to apply it in a way that's built for you. This starts with treating yourself as your own research subject. You are the most important research project you will have in your life. Keep a log, not just of your lifts, but of your recovery, your sleep, your nutrition quality, and even how motivated you feel going into sessions. Over weeks and months, patterns will emerge. You'll see which lifts are driving progress, which volumes push you forward, and which leave you feeling drained. Like when I was younger, I emailed Dan John. Now, a lot of you guys who are OGs to the channel will know this story. He's a legendary coach, and he told me to go back through my training logs and spot where I was naturally deloading. I did it, and in a light bulb moment in something like 2002, I realized my best training runs weren't the ones where I was blindly following my program. They were ones where I listened to my own data and adjusted accordingly. That run of training I had after his advice was one of the best of my entire training life. This is where the real magic happens, not in trying to match the average, but in finding your sweet spot. For some, that might be fewer, heavier sets. For others, it's more moderate work with a tighter focus on form. There's no wrong answer. only the one that drives progress for you. For example, every video that I will make on training splits, there'll always be a few guys who really love the bro split and go, Faz, I love the bro split, it works for me. Great, absolutely fantastic. If it works for you, that is wonderful. Keep writing that in my comments. I want to hear about it. I think that's fantastic. You've found what works for you. Don't let anybody else tell you that that's wrong. And here's the thing, when you stop chasing other people's optimal and start refining your own, your progress stops being random. You can make adjustments based on evidence that actually matters. That is your own results. And that's when the science stops becoming something you read about and starts becoming a tool you own, because the most effective science isn't just on a paper or on social media. It's the personal science you build from your own data. Right guys, I'm gonna start wrapping up there. Lab studies are a starting point. Your body and your experience is the real research lab. And if you're ready to put this into practice and learn a bit more about how I've done this, I want to direct you to a video I did recently, which is I'm 44, I wish I trained like this in my 30s. That is a summation of some of the lessons I've learned about my own training up until this point, hopefully to help you guys and girls who are in your 20s and 30s improve your training results. So this video shows you exactly how. I'll link that up on the screen, click on it, and I'll see you there. All right.